So overall, a pretty strong November, going back to episode 28 on the What Do We Do podcast, but we still do, of course, have a few weeks left here in 2020 before we get to 2021. Kyle Bogey, Dewey Steffen here, the What Do We Do podcast, episode 29. Dewey, we got a lot to get into here in the future of tech investing. We got biotech companies that are going and trying to get that vaccine as safe as humanly possible before the release. A lot to dive into on this episode.
Hey, Bogey. Good to see you. Good to see Sully. Great to see all the YouTube watchers and talk to all the podcast listeners out there. Episode 29. We're just getting started. Are you kidding me? This is fantastic. And today, yes, we're going to talk about all things healthcare, right?
No, there's no doubt. And there's a lot to dive into when it comes to that. I wanted to at least start just because, here in the state of Michigan, we, currently have a lot going on. The pandemic, unfortunately, hasn't slowed. And, who knows when we'll be able to get back to, a sense of normalcy. But for you at Great Lakes Wealth and the entire team here, knowing what's going on with small businesses and the pandemic and everything, I know you guys have decided to do a little bit of charitable work here for anyone that is to ultimately invest, some of their money with Great Lakes Wealth. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I know you've appeared on Channel 4 and, have gone into detail with Jason Carr on TV about it. But what is Great Lakes Wealth doing specifically to try and help the community?
Yeah, Bogey, thank you for bringing that up, right? We have a few weeks left. This special promotion that we've come up with goes until the end of the year, and we are endearingly call it our fee to your charity, right? Helping the entire community. And so what that means is any existing clients that add $50,000 or more to their account before year end, or any new clients that come on board here to Great Lakes Wealth, we will give half of our 2021 management fee to a charity, right? So deposit the money now, and we're encouraging that for several reasons. One is to help the community for sure. If people are going to be investing, then why not have that fee, go partially to charity and the community rather than just to the company, I guess. There's a bunch of E's in there, right? Dewey, Bogey, Sully. Anyway, so along that same idea, this might encourage investors to get the money out of the bank, get the money invested. This is still with the record returns that we've talked about lately, is still, I think, the investment opportunity of a generation. There's so much ahead based upon the Federal Reserve and keeping interest rates low, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yes, the four charities that we are kind of highlighting, if you will, Beaumont Children's Health and the Children's Miracle Network. To help children, right, in the community. The other one is American House Foundation that kind of focuses on the elderly that are in need in our community. Forgotten Harvest, feeding those in our community, as well as Defender Mobility, which helps veterans that are disabled and provides them that are needed with wheelchairs that are, not manual, but automated. So we're trying to help veterans, children, the elderly, as well as the hungry. And then anyway, we also have a fifth, category of fill in the blank. So anybody, again, we've been blessed to have over $5 million of new client or existing client assets come in the last 60 days. So we are really trying to get a strong push in the next 2 weeks. We're happy to forego some of our fee to give it to charity, man. It's a great cause, and we're fired up.
And, of course, for more information, you can always go to greatlakeswealth.us and certainly contact Great Lakes Wealth, 248-378-1200 if you want to find out more information or, begin the process of rolling over some of that money and begin investing it. And, of course, that fee will go to charity. So.
Yes, and it is on our homepage of the website, so it's not on page 12 down at the bottom in the corner. It's right there on the homepage. Please take a look, and anything we can do to help you, we were happy to do that, and we're going to be helping the community at the same time.
Great stuff. All right, so here we are, middle of December. We have a few weeks until 2021, and there are a few things that certainly have piqued my interest, and I know are piquing the interest of the entire country and the entire world, and that is where are we at when it comes to biotech, when it comes to the COVID-19, vaccination process? I guess, did you want to kind of start there before we fully dive into everything?
I think that's a great start, right? This episode is on healthcare and the healthcare sector. The healthcare sector has several subsectors, and we'll talk about them all very briefly. But again, as we're in the middle of the throes of COVID-19 part 2, it's important, I guess, to use that as kind of the the platform to talk about healthcare in general, and certainly biotech and the cure for COVID. As of December 1st, it's been reported worldwide of 65 million cases of coronavirus. And also, it's been reported that worldwide, that results in 1.5 million deaths to date. Right? So this is a big deal, and everyone knows it. Some people are kind of, maybe getting tired of it or just exhausted of it, but that's because it hasn't gone away. And so we hope that with the news that came out of Pfizer last month, as well as Moderna and several other companies, right? Those healthcare and biotech names. We hope that the news of a vaccine is going to be imminent. We have the news of the vaccine, I guess, so it's the distribution of said vaccine, right? That's imminent. Another piece of data is as of December 1st, there were 970 drugs and vaccines in development targeting the coronavirus.
It's incredible.
Right? And we talked about it early on, Kyle, that there is 3 main areas of pharmaceutical and science related to COVID-19, right? That is the testing of it, that is the treatment of it, and that is the cure of it. So obviously the vaccine is the most important solution, but in the meantime, there is, again, the testing and the treating of it as well. So that's all part of that 970, rounded up to 1,000, if you will. So that's big money. That's a lot of companies going deep, going after it, trying to get this situation eradicated.
So to kind of break it down, clearly, not all, I don't think, not all 970, companies, lab faculty, whatever, are going to have a successful vaccine and are going to be selling it on the open market. I think it's going to be whittled down to a handful of the big companies out there, the big conglomerates that are going to be out there selling it. Is that fair to assume, I guess, as we're paying attention to it all?
It's funny you should ask, Kyle. I've got a piece of information right here on my desk that will answer that for you. Okay, this comes from the New York Times just yesterday. Okay, they say that there are 41 companies in phase 1 trials for the vaccine currently. Okay. And phase 1 means vaccines testing the safety and dosage. Okay. They say there are 17 companies currently in phase 2 trials, and that is vaccines in expanded and safety trials. Okay. That says there are 13 companies in phase 3 trials, which is the vaccine of efficacy and testing. Okay? And there are, whittled down, as you said, Bogey, there are 7 companies that are in limited approval currently. Those are vaccines approved for early and limited use. So there's the 7 that we're all aware of from the headlines. And the big news is there is still 0 that are fully approved for distribution. That's where we need to go. And this, race to the cure, we're working on these 7 companies that have the 7, limited approval, and that's where we're going to start.
So I guess as it pertains to you, Great Lakes Wealth, investing, businesses, this entire sector, and we're going to continue to monitor all the companies that are trying to get that full 100% approval so that they can start getting first responders, the elderly, and then everyone else a vaccine if you so choose to, potentially get one. What are you most paying attention to, and what are you expecting once one company, say, gets that 100% approval? They are a go, and they are going to be potentially preventing, death and saving lives here moving forward.
Well, there's a couple subsets to that, Kyle. Number one is I think it's global. So I think some companies, their distribution or their 100% efficacy, I don't think is necessarily the standard. I think again 95% efficacy. Some are 1 injection, some are 2 injection. Some have a cost of X, and others are X minus Y. So a lot of it is again depending on geography, but also I think cost. But as you said, a lot of it is actually going to be regulated by the government in terms of who gets what, where, and when, and how. And so we'll be paying attention to that just to see how the distribution flows through the system.
So I guess, what would you like to pinpoint here as it pertains to the biotech sector, as we head into 2021 and what should be, I think, a groundbreaking year, for science and for this industry specifically?
Great. Well, we're not just going to focus only on biotech. Mm-hmm. We'll talk on the broader healthcare.
Tech investing
We're going to go back to the sectors of the S&P. Kyle, do you happen to remember how many sectors there are?
11.
Oh, my man. You've been paying attention.
Come on.
Look at that. Sully's in there. He's got both hands up. He's fired up. He's like, yes. So there are, right? And one of those is healthcare. And so healthcare actually has several subsectors to it. One is medical services. Another one is manufacturing of medical equipment and drugs. The other one is providing medical insurance. And then ones that otherwise facilitate the provision of healthcare to patients. That might be facilities, profitable hospitals, that sort of thing, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about COVID and the search for the drug, if you will. But then we're going to talk about, again, the broader healthcare sector, and certainly part of that is biotechnology. Some of it is generic drug distribution. It's also, again, the device makers and the facility operators. So we're going to go through all of it, and it should be an exciting pod from here, okay?
I mean, it sounds like this is something that should boom in 2021. All areas that you just kind of laid out. Is that a fair assumption at this point, something that we all really need to be paying attention to?
So we think so, right? So far in 2020, you've had some of the haves and have-nots based upon, again, the hype, right? The hype of the race for the cure. And so whether it's Moderna or some other companies, including Pfizer, that the stocks, Regeneron is another one, those are stocks that may have had, very aggressive gains year to date because of, again, their lead in finding a vaccine and the distribution of it. So they'll ultimately become profitable, off of that enterprise, right? So with that, though, we talked about, an episode, 2 or 3 months ago that our thought...
And perfect, transition there. If you haven't been caught up on all the episodes, there's a library of 28 episodes, the What Do We Do podcast. Download it, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, obviously, if you want to watch us, idiots interact, please go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Make sure you get caught up on that. But anyway, go ahead.
YouTube,
Two or 3 months ago, an episode, you mentioned something.
Again, I'll echo that. Download and subscribe, right? Mm-hmm. Subscribe is the big one. Let's subscribe. That way everyone gets an automatic, download when the new one comes out, right? So with all that, we were talking about what?
You said you mentioned something 2 to 3 months ago on one of the episodes.
Yes, and I believe this is a thesis for our firm investing in healthcare and pharmaceuticals and biotechnology heading into 2021. And we mentioned this a few months ago in one of those prior podcasts, which is all of these 970 companies that are out there trying to find a solution to COVID. Again, testing, treatment, and the vaccine, right? Well, I believe that they will stumble upon other drugs or treatments, other solutions to problems they didn't know they were looking for. Mm-hmm. Whether, again, trying to find something that works with COVID, it ends up helping your psoriasis, right? Something that's trying to help COVID might help, with cardiac, right? So I just think that there'll be a lot of ancillary solutions that come about because of the race for the COVID cure.
For sure. Could somebody also maybe just, stumble into a cancer cure? I mean, that would just be fantastic. We just put that out there,
brother.
Maybe focus a little bit on that. And just if somehow it ends up happening, that'd be absolutely amazing if we could get a cancer cure.
Amen, brother. So I'm with you there, right? And, this is kind of off topic, but back to cannabis and CBD, right? That was not the main, reason that people were hyped about cannabis. It was THC. Well, CBD has certainly been around, and that was another podcast as well. Go back and check that one out. But as it relates to healthcare, and I guess you can even put cannabis in that category as well for treatment, not of COVID, but of other ailments and whatnot. But and that's very, very important in the thesis for cannabis, by the way. So I don't want to make light of it.
Nothing like a good thesis.
Nothing like a good thesis, right? So in healthcare, you kind of can knock it down to maybe, the 5 that I talked about. I guess it's 5 or 6 that I talked about. But you have big pharma, the pharmaceutical companies, and that would be like the Pfizer. And I'll go through the list, as it related to the S&P and the sector in a second. And they're the names that you've heard of: Johnson & Johnson, United Health, Pfizer, Merck, Abbott Labs,
the monsters.
The monster, Thermo Fisher Scientific, AbbVie, Medtronic, Danaher, and Bristol Myers Squibb. Those are the big behemoths, right? So they will spend money to develop drugs internally, right? But most of the time they actually invest in biotech companies, where they partner with, again, biotech companies, which are more focused on finding the drugs.
Hey guys, it's Bogey. I want to take a second to talk to you about Dewey Steffen and his excellent team at Great Lakes Wealth. Look, do you feel overwhelmed with managing your assets in today's financial world? I mean, think about the times that we're in here in 2020. Do you want financial freedom? Great Lakes Wealth offers Wall Street solutions with Main Street values. They sit down with you to develop custom financial solutions utilizing all of your assets, even your 401k. We build the future you want based on your goals and your dreams. That is what Great Lakes Wealth is all about. Thinking about you, thinking about your family, and thinking about your future. Simply go to greatlakeswealth.us to schedule an appointment today. They offer better investments, better service, and a fee-back guarantee. Okay, a fee-back guarantee. Your road to financial freedom starts at greatlakeswealth.us. Please visit greatlakeswealth.us or simply give Great Lakes Wealth a call today.
And then the big pharma ends up being able to distribute it, market it, get it, out to the public. So a lot of, particularly in the COVID situation, a lot of them are big pharma partnered with a biotech company, right? So switch gears to that. The biotech space has to deal with, again, those companies that are more specifically in research and development, trying to find a cure, trying to find a detailed treatment, something that is more specific, right? And they're not marketing it, they're not branding it, they're not going through the big behemoth strategy. They're, again, aggressively focused on trying to solve for a problem. Fair enough? And some of them are very large and they do multiple types of projects all the time. Others are singularly focused. But some of the largest there are Gilead Sciences, Amgen, Moderna, which we talked about, which has come to light because of COVID, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, Regeneron, Biogenetic, Illumina, Seagen, Insight Pharmaceuticals. So there's a list, and they're very specific. In those two categories of drugs, you will have the more safe, maybe more stable, dividend producing. You can refer to them as maybe the Dow type of players if you're comparing it to the S&P or the NASDAQ.
Sure. And
the NASDAQ type of players would be those biotechs, right? Those drug. And so those are sometimes boom or bust. Their life depends on, can they get the phase 1 trials? Can they get the phase 2 trials, right? And so from an investment perspective, the more risk you take, the more return you hope to get, but also the more you may crash and burn if it doesn't work out, right?
In anticipation of some of these companies, I mean, we've talked about Moderna, obviously, and a few others. Upon the news of the 95% efficacy, and they're moving on to the next phase and all of that, what happened, I guess, to the market on days like that? Assuming it would boom, but is it still a quality investment at this point to be looking at multiple companies in different areas, or have they already shot up because people are anticipating this growth, I suppose?
Yeah, well, that's great. In the short term, everything runs off of headlines, right? So it was Pfizer has a COVID-19 vaccine, right? And that was the Monday back in November. And so everything shot up. And then and Pfizer shot up particularly, right? Well, then the next day, another competitor said, well, we have one too. And one was 94% efficacy, one was 94.5 or 95. So then one shoots up, one shoots down, right? So in the short term, everything runs off of headlines. So the company du jour that says they have something, and there were also some, again, a month or two ago that said that, they were stopping their trials. They were, putting the brakes on. They were told that they have some challenges or some issues. And so those stocks, dropped off of that news. However, all of it, comes out in the wash to where longer term, it depends. Does this company that we're talking about just have this one income stream, if you will, or is it a large enough company that, again, COVID-19 is one of their revenue, sets, but they also have, other drugs that are out there currently being used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it really depends on the company specifically, and then, we take a look at it from there.
Terrific. So I guess as we go forward and continue to look at the biotech industry, that sector, the healthcare sector, of things, I guess what other specific things are you paying attention to here moving forward?
Well, so again, it's all interrelated, right? We haven't talked about this yet, but as COVID has bore its ugly head again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coronavirus part 2, we said last time. Hospitals are now almost at capacity again. So whatever that means that there's more people in the hospitals. That means the hospitals are probably billing more. So there maybe is an opportunity to invest in the hospitals, right? Ventilators, they talk about, again, really challenging patients, serious cases of COVID, they need ventilators. Well, the ventilator companies are probably selling more ventilators, right? So as you look down and look at the ecosystem, there's a lot of different subsets within there. So it's not just the headline of what company, is has the vaccine for COVID-19. So you have, again, the medical device companies. Medtronic is a very well-known name there. And we're not even talking about COVID-19 right now. Now we're talking about, stents for, heart and cardiac patients. You have hips and knees and the population's aging. And so there's all types of needs from medical devices, medical services, and whether that's, rehabbing, et cetera. There's medical insurance companies. There's the big 5 there that do all your billing and your insurance. And then there's also, again, the facilities, right? So all of it's interconnected, and we're always analyzing it, from a perspective of opportunity, short term, medium term, but most importantly, long term.
As we wait to see, again, what company's going to get it first, who's going to be out there, how quickly is it going to get turned around and, into the hands of the people that need the vaccine. Like you said, everything's kind of connected, so some things are going to go up, some things are going to go down. I guess if you had to say, okay, once the vaccine is out there, once, a ton of millions of people have had a chance to get the vaccine and things are slowly getting back to normal, what is going to be, or what sectors, I should say, would be most boosted by that outside of just the biotech, sector, the healthcare sector? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, I'm assuming travel. I'm assuming, commercial real estate as people potentially go back to work. There's got to be a ton of companies, sectors, what have you, that this vaccine comes out and boom, things are kind of shooting back up and getting back to normal.
Yeah, so that'll be in phases too, and absolutely, that's the $64,000 question for 2021, Bogey, is, again, how fast does the vaccine make its way through all of us in the population, and then what does it ultimately mean, right? So early on, it's first responders, it's the elderly, it's those that are really high risk or detailed cases, and then it'll trickle on down through the society that way. But yes, there's the now investing, the next investing, and the later investing. And so we talked about that back in June, and we're already in these phases. There's also the stay-at-home economy versus the get-out-and-go economy. So, again, if the vaccine comes tomorrow and we're all, inoculated by Friday, hey, let's go somewhere on Monday, Bogey. Is that going to happen?
Easy.
I don't think so, right? You know what I'm saying?
I'm not going to be rushing to get in line.
Okay. So again, but maybe is it March? Is it Q1 2021? Yeah. Is it Q2? Is it Q3? So a lot of it's dependent. But yes, the common sense says that those companies that have been most affected negatively by COVID would be the ones that potentially will rebound the most, for sure. And those that have thrived during the stay-at-home or the pandemic may have them slow down. But to that, I would say slow down. slow down. There might have been some permanent changes to how companies do business because of COVID-19. The workforce may not have to all go back and be in person. They could be virtual and work remote. Air travel and hotels, the stocks have rebounded quite handsomely as well. So maybe there's not as much value in there. Maybe the debt that has been taken on by companies to survive 2020 may slow them down in the profitability that they will have in 2021. So as always, there's a lot of work to be done. Roll up your sleeves, but we're excited for what 2021 has to offer after we get a little more data about the vaccine.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it, a little bit right there, but I'll be fascinated to see how normal things actually go back to. Are we going to be 5 days a week in the office, moving forward, or is it going to be 3 days a week in the office, and then 2 you can work remotely, maybe at a local Panera or Starbucks, or you can work from home, or maybe you do an extended weekend and you go to the vacation home, or you take a 4-day weekend to Florida and you work that Thursday and Friday, and then, oh, by the way, Saturday and Sunday you can enjoy, on the beach or whatever before you fly home and get back to work on Monday. I'm just very curious to see how many companies are just going to simply say, we don't need to have this. We can have a conference call. We don't need to have this in-person, meeting in the conference room or whatever. That to me is going to be really fascinating.
Absolutely, and that's part of economics in terms of it trickles down, right? So the more that people are out and working in person or just not cocooned, if you will, hibernating, whatever the word is, they tend to spend those dollars. So you have a job, you go to lunch, you stop by the gas station, you just spend in the local community. So in your example, absolutely, but who loses the most? That's small business. That's the neighborhood, because we're not traveling and stopping here and going there. And, again, the big players and profitability will still be there, but it's going to affect a lot of the employees at the same time. The companies are making their decisions, Wall Street versus Main Street.
I don't know if there's anything specific, that you want to make sure that we get to here, but, for me at least, how do you as a wealth management advisor, the CEO, the owner of Great Lakes Wealth, how do you even approach and plan for 2021 when we don't know, is this going to be a Q1 thing? Is this going to be a Q2 thing? Is it how many millions of people are going to do it, and then how many millions aren't going to do it? That has to be difficult to prepare for.
Not necessarily, right?
You're all over it.
Well, again, it's investing. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. And we've said, countless times, don't fight the Fed, right? So the biggest news isn't COVID-19 and the vaccine. We know that that's coming, right? And it may be Q1, it may be Q2, but we know that it's coming, okay? Mm-hmm. So all that to say, we also need to see what happens in Washington, D.C., with Congress and the president. We also need to see what happens with the Federal Reserve and keeping interest rates low. And so we understand that there will be, unfortunately, winners and losers, but we have an economic backdrop that has been depressed, but is now looking to come out of the recession that we were in. And so we want to really take a hard look at thriving, not just surviving. So we're going to have fun getting through it. And I can't tell you all the answers today, but I can tell you future podcasts, we'll have them for you.
Well, I hope what you said on previous episode 28, which if you haven't listened to, go ahead and make sure you download it and subscribe and all of that. But you said it could be, according to CNN, as many as 44 months before we're back to, from a market standpoint, where we were prior to this pandemic. I certainly hope that we're at least remotely close to being back next summer, and then the summer after that. I really hope that that's just a baseless, ridiculous projection of 44 months, as opposed to us having to wait almost 4 years to get close to being back,
Well, I wish I had a great quote for hope, but, hope if you're a dope, I guess. How's that? I just made that up. There's no chance of that, Kyle. There's zero chance, right? So in the reality world, and it's not just from CNN, Goldman Sachs has reports out there as well. All of Wall Street and economists, we recognize that everything's changed. And so we won't be back to that same employment number anytime next year. Maybe it's sooner than 2024. But, as long as you can understand and deal with what's in front of you head on, that's your best chance of not only survival and surviving, but thriving, right? So we hope for the best, absolutely, but we prepare for the worst. How about that?
Have to be. Super detailed look at the healthcare sector. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we pinpoint and hit on here while we're discussing, the ins and outs of the healthcare sector, the potential for vaccines being back, and the outlook, really for 2021 in this, very specific, biotech investing?
I'm going to give you a few points to wrap it up here,
Please.
Kyle. One is that healthcare stocks can provide generous returns, okay? But it also creates an environment of volatility. As we talked about, so many companies trying to solve so many problems. There's hits and misses, okay? So make sure that you do your work and understand that besides just healthcare, there's subsets within healthcare. Okay, and we talked about those. So that's number one. The other is back to COVID-19. I want to talk about what you should be thinking about, to your question earlier about where we'll be next year with COVID. A company out there that we follow, Putnam Investments, they mentioned 6 items to be aware of with this coming vaccine distribution, okay? And it's very important. So podcast listeners, listen up. Write it down. If you're watching on YouTube, write it down. Number 1, it's never wise to chase winners based on headlines.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, a viable vaccine isn't likely to be widely available until middle of 2021.
Great.
Number 3, adopting a new vaccine isn't always smooth. Number 4, a vaccine isn't an economic cure-all. Number 5, not every sector will recover the same way. And number 6, stay patient and stay informed.
Now that will be interesting. And to your point as well, just because the vaccines are out doesn't mean that, we're completely out of the woods. You still see how many people dying from the flu every single year, and we've had a flu vaccine for, decades. I've never had a flu vaccine in my entire life, but, it doesn't mean that you can't die from the flu just because there's a vaccine out there for the flu. Just like with COVID-19, there's going to be a vaccine out there. There's still going to be, unfortunately, I think for the rest of time, people that are dying every single year from this. So that is something to keep in mind.
But at the end of the day, humans, but especially Americans, are living longer than they ever have, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were, the race to be 100. Now it's the race to be 120, right? So this is very important. And so we believe science is just getting started, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and it is becoming a technology. Certainly, we talked about that earlier. So we believe a long-term trend of investing in healthcare will serve investors well. Absolutely. And I'm going to leave you with a final quote today, Kyle.
Please, yeah.
You can't enjoy wealth if you're not in good health.
Fair
How
point.
about that,
Yeah.
right?
Got to take care of yourself. And it has to start as soon as possible. Don't wait too late in life to start really taking care of yourself. All right. Great, I think, comprehensive look at what we have to look forward to, in 2021. Hopefully, this vaccine knocks everything out and we can actually travel again and have fun and, never talk about this horrific topic on the What Do We Do podcast. I don't want to talk about it ever again after we get this vaccine out there, okay?
I got it.
I'm going to make it a mandate. We're done with this COVID-19 crap as
Yes.
soon as the vaccine is out, okay?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. I'm on the same page. We got it.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys listening. Again, continue to download. Go check out the entire library and catalog of What Do We Do podcasts, and please make sure you subscribe.
Hit that subscribe button, right? Episode 29 in the books, and we're just getting started.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It's only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risks and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.